Todd Beck is a really interesting guy. Todd is CEO and founder of Beck Media and Marketing, the agency dozens of TV, over-the-top, and tech companies look to for potent digital strategies that get results. Wait to hear about some of his clients. Beck Media's areas of focus span content creation and exploitation on TV, web, mobile, and social media. I love exploitation. I just love the use of that term. And whatever medium comes next. Beck's clients include NBC Universal, News Corp, and several over-the-top video players whose names he cannot mention. Both the majors and the niche players in the category, among others. Please welcome Todd Beck. Todd, you're the go-to guy for social media for huge media brands. That's why I wanted to have you here. I'm so glad you could be here. Social media activation is the term we throw around because ultimately what all these brands have in common is they want to promote an action that drives a business objective, right?
That's right.
And that's social media activation. Can you talk about what are the secrets to social media activation? I mean, how does it work? How do you do it?
Sure, and thank you so much for having me. It goes to the beginning, which is what do you want people to do? How are you going to drive your business? And to me, the number one resource that we're going after is people's time and attention. Time is obviously money, and attention is splintered in 100 different directions. So you want to reach someone and get them to be aware of your thing, plan to tune into it. If they liked it, tell a friend. But if people aren't really watching as many 30-second spots on TV as they used to, if they're not exposed to the advertising and sort of paid marketing as much as they used to be because they've got so many different channels to get their entertainment and their content from, how are you going to reach them? You've got to go where they are. And if they're in 100 different places, you have to be in 100 different places as well. So it's about finding who you want to reach, figuring out what they're interested in, how they want to be communicated with, and then reaching them in that way.
That sounds really granular and really difficult. What's the practical means of making that happen?
Well, when you used to have the attention of people and you could drive behaviors with just advertising and marketing, you would do that. You have an audience, you tell them about things, and then they act interested in them and go watch and pay attention and tell their friends.
We like that model.
It's a great model, but as it becomes more challenging, you have to find another spot to get their attention. Now, if you have the audience, it's great. If you don't have the audience, let's say you've got a new channel or a new show or a new movie that doesn't have, if it's not, Spider-Man 16, it doesn't have the benefit of, 30 years of Spider-Man to have built in an audience. You've got to get to the people through someone who has an audience. So you could buy an audience or you could borrow an audience. And to borrow the audience, a great place to turn, and this is really how I came into the category, you look at people who have an audience and trade in information. So those are journalists. You find the journalists who reach the audience you want to reach and become interesting and impressive and relevant and timely to them. That's a great way to target a demographic, to target a geographic area, to target a psychographic, because different journalists cover different categories. And if you can find a journalist with a meaningful following and get them to agree that your thing is the most interesting thing of the day and get some editorial attention, you're earning the media rather than buying it. And that's a really efficient way to go when it works. But to earn the media, you have to earn it the way you earn anything else, which is by being smart and targeted, working hard to make sure you're bringing the right message to the right person in the right way with the right assets so that they can quickly and easily repackage it and go ahead and push it out to their audience, sending people your way. And it comes all the way back around to this greatest asset, which is time. A journalist's time is just as valuable as anybody else's. And we have this thing that we do called the let them take Friday off rule, which is where we'll reach out to someone on a Monday morning with a very well-researched editorial pitch that, this is the story, this is the opportunity, these are the exclusive assets, these are the interviews you're going to get, this is the additional promotion we can give you. What do you think? And they say, wow, that's really good. You've obviously read my work, you know my beat, you know what I cover. they might march down the hall to their editor and say, boss, I've got a great idea for a story, and explain what we have packaged up. They call back and they say, okay, my editor says we can do it. We bang out the interviews, they look through the assets, they write their thing, they deliver it on a Wednesday, it's edited by a Thursday. They've got nothing to do on Friday, they take their kid to Disneyland on Friday, and suddenly we're the team of media folks who let them have Friday off to take their kid to Disneyland. Next time we call, that guy's pretty excited to take the call because last time it was a good experience.
So in this social media world, you would almost consider the journalist, what used to be called a journalist, now to be maybe more of an influencer, right? Because an influencer isn't necessarily someone with a masthead. It's someone with a following. So is now the challenge to reach out to find and influence the influencers?
Well, I would note that virtually all journalists today are influencers. Not all influencers are journalists. But whatever the case may be, that same process, helping this person have something that they want to share with their circle of influence is about the same. You know, the editorial requirements are different. The process might be a little different. The speediness of phone call returns and text messages back may be a little bit different. But it's the same idea. It boils down to helping other people get what they want so that you can get what you want. That's
a key right there, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it comes from one of the great salesmen of all times. That was Zig Ziglar's thing. If I can help enough people get what they want, eventually I will get what I want. And I think that's really true. I learned that from one of my first bosses, not even in the media industry. He was a kitchen knife salesman, actually, but he believed that, like, in his heart. And it doesn't matter if it's sales or media or, food service, restaurant. Like, if you make the best sandwich, people are going to line up around the block for it.
I have a sense in the media industry on the audio side that there's still a feeling like we need to push messages out, even on social, that, Twitter is for broadcasting. We need to push messages out. If we get a comment back, we'll reply to it. We will, quote, engage. And that's about as sophisticated as it gets until you get into, buying Facebook ads and so on. But what you're talking about is much more surgical, it seems to me, and you're really looking for people who have pools of influence and providing something that they can share with that audience that they have sway over.
Yeah, and it might be surgical, but it is not sinister. We're helping expose people to things that we really think they're going to be interested in. The best way to make an enemy is to harass a journalist or an influencer with something they don't care about at all, that's totally irrelevant or inauthentic to their brand or beat or audience. And the best way to make a friend in the Twitterverse is to bring someone something that's fun or upbeat. I mean, what do people want? Again, they want to laugh. They want to be healthy, they want to be happy, they want to have friends, they want to be rich, they want to have sex. What else do people want? But like all of those things are perfectly aligned. Oh, they want to win. All of those things are perfectly aligned with like every vertical of media, right? There's sports, there's comedy, there's news, or, they want to be informed. They want to feel things. People like to be scared sometimes, I think, which is why fear sells in the news. Like, oh, I'm glad that didn't happen to me, right? But all of those feelings that you can deliver to someone with media is really what we're trading in.
So when you talk about understanding the audience, the importance of understanding the audience, you're talking about understanding them not at a demographic level, but it's something much deeper.
Yeah, I think it goes to people's experience of being human. I mean, we're all doing business here, but it's a room full of communicators who are communicating because they feel driven to. I mean, there are definitely easier ways to make a living than what anybody in this room does, right? We do it because we either love it or we feel driven to do it. And if you can find what makes the people on the other end of the phone or the other end of the iPhone or the TV or the radio or the podcast, if you can figure out what they want and help them get more of it more easily than anybody else, then suddenly you've got the world's biggest audience for a podcast of people playing D&D, right?
That's right. When we talked on the phone, you said that one of the things we try to do is identify what we want the audience to believe and implant that belief. What does that mean and how do we do it?
Oh, I think I was quoting Inception.
Inception joke, everybody.
Yeah. No, so it's this triangle, you know, who do you want to reach? What do you want them to feel or believe? And then what action do you want them to take as a result of that feeling
Can
or
you repeat
belief?
that? Because I think that's really important.
Okay, who do you want to reach? So who's the audience? What do you want them to believe or feel? And then what do you want them to do? So in the case of our work for a television network, let's say, we want to reach the TV viewing audience as broadly as possible, or in some cases in a niche way, but let's say it's a broadcast network. They're trying to go broad. We want to make them aware that there's a thing. It's a new show, it's a reality show, there's singing and celebrities, and it's exciting. And the performances are great, and the lighting is great, and there's suspense, and you'll be cheering, and there's a big prize, and it's all very high stakes. So we want to reach everyone. We want them to make them aware of that and feel or believe that that's exciting, interesting, and better than what's on the channel that's up or down one spot on the dial. And then we want to make them do the number one TV viewing and ratings driving behavior, which is tune in, and the number two behavior, which is tell someone else you're tuning in. So tune in and then tell a friend. You see shows like all the reality blockbusters right now that do an incredible job of activating across social, leading into the telecast on the East Coast, and then they keep the buzz up all day and afternoon. We on the West Coast have the unfortunate experience of kind of getting TV spoiled for us sometimes, but most of the audience is on the East Coast anyway, and the networks are more than happy to live with the spoiling of the West Coast in order to make sure that the East Coast watched.
That's good to know. The three steps you're talking about, it seems to me that often in the audio space, we find that middle one being lost. So it's, who do we want to reach everybody? What do we want them to do? Listen. And this middle thing is kind of the thing we forget about.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So you ask yourself, what's going to improve someone's life if they tune into this thing, and then work backwards from that. That sort of backwards progression is useful as well. Rather than say, we're going to make your thing really famous, we think, where are you trying to go? You want to get your show renewed, you want to get on a bigger station, you want better guests, you want more advertisers. So those are the things you want. So how do we get there? If you want audience, you figure out who they are and where they are, what else they listen to and do, and somehow get to them and draw them in, possibly across social, possibly with an Omaze promotion. I saw someone do something really funny. Some company was moving into fancy new office space, and they put their conference room on Airbnb, not because they wanted anyone to stay in it, but they wanted to express to people that they've been frugal about the process of moving into their very luxurious new office space. And it was a great sort of backhanded way to tell the world what
that requires several levels of planning and creative thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a little like advertising and marketing ninjutsu.
One of the biggest problems any brand has, as you know, is to rise above the noise. Whether we're talking about a new podcast or a radio brand or something online, how do you rise above the noise? How do you get heard in such a noisy environment?
Well, a couple of interesting notes there. One, there's a baseline level of buzz. There's something going on all the time. You could call it the news cycle or the media cycle or the hype cycle or the buzz pipeline or whatever you want to call it. But you can either spend the energy it takes to create your own wave and then try to surf your wave of awareness to the audience and the results you want. Or you can look around and sort of look out at the horizon and see what waves are coming and paddle into the right wave for the result, that's going in the direction you want to go, is going to reach the people you want to reach. So we look at our internal realities, the things we know that our client or network or show is doing, whether they've got a special guest or whether it sweeps or whether there's a big twist or a surprise or it's the finale or something. And then we look around and we see what the external realities are. So if you open up any calendar, you see all these holidays, some real, some not real. It's St. Patrick's Day, it's Easter, it's April Fool's Day. Like any digital media company worth its salt does something on April Fool's Day because every year somebody at every media outlet has to write the story about these are the things that happened on April Fool's Day. If you think about that 3 days in advance, you're probably too late. But if you think about it a month or 2 months in advance, you can plant a seed for something that'll turn out really cool and really interesting, and you get included. If you're a digital media platform, you get a link back to your thing, you drive awareness, you drive earned media, you drive click-through, you drive sampling, you drive subscriptions and signups, and you drive social buzz that feeds that cycle. So paddling into the waves that already exist on the calendar is a really effective way to, with a little bit of extra energy, hopefully, creative and execution energy, to get more of what you want there.
So sometimes it's your own brand story, and sometimes you're attaching to a larger story that's happening around you somewhere.
Sure. What's Bud Light is doing the Bud Light party or something with Amy Schumer and was it Seth Rogen? It's a presidential election year, so let's run a candidate for the Bud Light party, because you got the blue party, you got the red party, and you've got the red and blue party. It's the Bud Light party.
Oh, that makes sense.
You might as well, jump into what the big cycle is this year. I mean, this summer we've got the Olympics. Seems like it's going to be a really weird Olympics, but nonetheless, a month from now, everything you look at is going to be about Olympics this and Olympics that, and people overcoming and challenges and who's the fastest and things
So
like that.
what would you say is the one best piece of advice you would give to someone in the audio space, someone in this room who's trying to really ramp up their social media strategy and sharpen it? What is the best piece of advice you could give?
I think I keep going back to this idea of knowing what you want. And a lot of listeners is not a specific enough answer. A lot of subscribers is not a specific enough answer. Knowing what your vision of success is and then working backwards from that is really the process. Figuring out how to build an audience of millions, not a million at a time, but a person at a time. If you help one person get something out of their experience with your show, it could just be a silly tweet at the one listener that responded. Or if someone sends you an email, write back. Say, hey, do you mind if I publish your email? Engaging people on a one-to-one basis like that is, I think, the pathway to then being, looking at 2 people and then 4 people and then 8 people and then 800 people and then 8,000 people. That process of really respecting what the person you're trying to serve and the person whose attention you want, respecting and serving them gets them to be more likely to help you achieve what you're trying to achieve.
That's great advice. Todd Beck from Todd Beck Media and Marketing. Thank you, Todd.